Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you'd like to support this channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they're live, and there's also a PayPal link in the info box below the video. But most importantly, if you would like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the shape of the Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using stock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel. So please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. And just for Anthony, that's the button that says share right there by the video. Anyway, one last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now we are joined by Sleeping Warrior, The Plain Truth, Jose, Flat Earth Vegan Goy, Flatten Earth, Chocolate Saying, and Arwin. Good to have you all.
Yo, yo.
Good morning.
Good afternoon.
Hello, hello, hello. What?
I shared on Facebook.
Good for you. Thank you very much. Just before the show started, I was like, do any of you share it? And Anthony's like, I don't actually know what you mean by share. I'm like, well, click the share button that says share under the video and go to the appropriate social media site that you're affiliated with in some small way and click on the button for that and then press share. And that's it. And then the show gets shared. And you alleviate all the problems that we discussed yesterday with Roxanne, where YouTube don't necessarily promote you or cross-promote you in your own circle. But if you share it, then you'll definitely be cross-promoting it in our circle. It doesn't matter if you're a globehead or a flat earther. Share, share, share.
To be honest, I didn't realise that button even existed. I just thought you meant when you share it, like go into Facebook, copy it, paste it. I couldn't be bothered doing that.
It's 3 button presses, approximately.
I know, but I'm sorry. I'll have to learn. I'll try it. I'll try it later.
It's good that you highlight what you don't know, because that means that there's probably a fair percentage of the audience that haven't got a clue either and just ignore the intro. And don't think, oh yeah, I'll just click on the button that says share and maybe go to my favourite social media site and press the button that says share again.
To be honest, I didn't realise that there was even a share button. I've never really noticed it, to be honest.
Really?
Yeah, really, I've never noticed it. I'm going to have a look at it right now.
As you're a pretty active participant in the show, I really can't complain. So don't worry too much. But it is nice if people share it, because that is how the show grows. Anyway,
when you asked Riley, did you share? I went on mute. I went whoops, and I went straight to Facebook and shared it. So I got you.
It does make all the difference. I mean, I took the leaf out of Jaren's book because he used to say to people, the way he used to phrase it was, if you don't necessarily want to be affiliated with Flat Earth, share it and say something like, look at these crazy guys, they think the Earth is flat. Words to that effect. Now, while I wouldn't necessarily endorse that because I think we're not crazy, I think we're perfectly sane, I get his point, which is to say that, you know, you might not necessarily think it's a good idea to share a video with the title Flat Earth Debate in it, but there are ways around it. There are, you know, this is interesting, as opposed to, I'm a flat earther now, which doesn't necessarily say you are just by sharing the show. On the contrary, for some of the globeheads, who might genuinely say, this guy's an idiot, that guy's an idiot, look how stupid they are at 1 hour, 32 minutes and 50 seconds.
There we go. I found it. So I'm on live right now with Nathan Oakley. Why don't you join me and listen in? There you go.
Thank you very much, Anthony. I really appreciate the support.
Post to Facebook. I have actually shared the show for the first time in my existence on the platform.
That's awesome.
Yay.
Gotta be honest, I'm pretty ashamed.
No, don't be. Like I say, you're pretty active in terms of other things, Anthony, so don't worry about it. It's more for the audience. But you are also an audience member at times, so there we go. So, any signs of curvature?
No, my license don't show it anywhere.
Nope. Not since the last show.
No. Any signs of axial rotation of the Earth-based variety?
No.
Any evidence that you can have a gas pressure without a container?
No.
About the distance to the sun?
Nope.
Who knows? What's the sun?
Exactly. What is the sun?
Waiting for Arwin to pipe up. Maybe not. Any evidence of gravity?
Nope.
Nope.
No.
I don't know if you guys realize, but if I think it was Flat Earth Logic said something like if you Google search gas pressure without a container, and you know who comes up as the answer in the images? Conspiracy cats. He's the first thing to pop up when you type in gas pressure without a container and search. In the images, he comes up. It's hilarious.
Yeah.
Playing through this, making a lot of background noise over here.
Yeah, it's Travis. Oh, I've got some dog squeaking toys. They'll pack it in a minute. But if I interrupt them, they start growling at me and stuff. So for the minute, I'll just have to leave them to it. But
It was a little static coming from Travis. Yeah, we good.
it's definitely true that if you Google search for gas pressure without a container, conspiracy cats is all over it getting dicked by Nathan Oakley 1980.
Excellent.
So funny.
That's fun. Well, the whole point is that there's a lot of people who believe you can have a vacuum of space, and they don't really give it much consideration until you say, well, how do you have gas pressure without a container?
Listen,
the gas pressure up top's only very, very, very slight, and it presses on a vacuum. That all makes sense. What's the problem? Move on. Nothing to see here. Right? No. That's your entire religion.
Honestly, to me, that's the best argument.
I've got a problem, Nathan.
Oh, no. What's the
We
problem?
need the panel. I need the panel's help for me to help explain this one because I'm not quite sure what's going on. If you want to present my screen, you will see a Flatty Award from the conference, and regardless of who it is or what it's for, the question that FE Core have been asking in the FE Core chat is, how is it that the award is bigger than David Weiss in the background? And we're not quite sure what the answer is because we know it's not 6 foot tall, but we think he must be sitting down. But we think he might actually be standing, and we're a bit stuck. And we were wondering, was it a bendy floor that the thing that the table that it's on, perhaps it's bendy, or maybe it's a bit of refraction and it's being loomed up from behind the table.
Hang on, you can't just look at this. This is an actual photograph. What we need to do is draw it, put it into an orthographic orthographic view, remove ourselves from the actual observation completely, and then draw a few assertions based on that, and then go back to the photograph to draw our conclusions about what the photo does actually say.
Okay.
Maybe draw the oralite in an orthographic view. That will help, maybe.
Okay, so let's try it. We'll imagine that our camera's on the side there, right? And we'll imagine that there's another the what do you call it? The trophy is there. And what we'll do is we'll put in a couple of lines of sight, and what we'll do, we'll put in a straight line of sight there. And as you can see, it clearly matches the picture. So actually, it doesn't quite match the picture. We'll have to make it. It must be the case that that's a little bit taller, mustn't it? Because do you know what? I can't explain it. I don't know what to do, Nathan.
Just draw a circle on your triangle, and that'll make it a person, you see, and then it'll be about the right height.
It must be because the Earth's curved.
It must be.
That must be what it is. I can't explain it, therefore
I know.
It must be the
I've got
position.
it. I know what we do. We assume Earth has got a radius.
Yeah. So I'll just show you what was being said in the actual FE Core chat. I'm sure they won't mind because it is quite funny. Somebody said, William says, is that Ward almost as tall as Weiss? Perhaps taller. So I said, it's just perspective, William. Actually, the floor was curved, Robert says. And I said, was it refraction? And then Mike said, it's legendary super looming perspective enigma refraction. But if anybody knows what the explanation is for why it was that trophy looked bigger than David Weiss, answers on a postcard, please. That made me feel good. Right.
Maybe the floor has a curve of 10 feet per meter squared or something like that.
I think we can absolutely assume that's the case, Jose.
Yeah, right.
Nathan, we had a development in the after show hangout yesterday, did we not?
We did, but is there any evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core? at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth?
Sorry, I thought we were done.
No.
No.
I'm still looking for that molten iron core at the centre of that presupposed spherical Earth. But so far, not so good.
Got the evidence for it, but we're too stupid to understand it, so we won't let us have it.
Oh, it's intelligence that is required rather than actual evidence then?
Well, not quite sure where Paul's coming from, but I'd love to see this evidence. It might take me 10 minutes to read through it or pick out the bits and pieces, but, you know, we can do it, so I don't really see the problem, Paul. Can't wait to see the word seismograph or seismology or size, anything to do with seismology in it, because it's bound to be there. And we all know he won't present it.
Well, I think we've covered the R value. Basically, let's just say that we will presuppose it or assume it before we do anything. If we ever have any encounters with perspective, we'll just remove ourselves from the observation itself, put ourselves in orthographic view and assume R. So that's covered the R value from housekeeping. So, okay, yeah. So
hold on, before you go, I got a housekeeping answer that.
Oh, okay, go on. My bad.
You went too far. You went too fast, and I didn't have a chance to press the button. So every time I want to look for curvature or the R value, I visit soundless footage and videos from the past year, and I look at Pontchartrain Bridge and the power lines, and I see him compare it to Walter Bisling model of Earth. And then I said, this, it looks like, I mean, it adds up, you know, if you match the curvature of the bridge with the model, it adds up. And, you know, many people believe that's Earth's curvature right there. So I know I'm probably going to be able to catch this same footage, but is it Earth curvature? I mean, I don't know. It matches up with the model, but do we live in a model?
Well, the problem is when you see high altitude footage from a drone of the same bridge, and it's perfectly straight. Yeah. Apart from the tiny little bit of bridge that lets boats underneath it, it's straight. Of course, if you get really low to the ground, you get all sorts of crazy things happening with the angle being reduced, and as I understand it, it's a kind of a swampy area, so it's got some crazy refraction effects also going on, it would seem. However, if you just get above all that shit and have a nice angle of view, you can see it's flat and straight. So that kind of craps all over that argument that Soundly has when he gets low to the ground and films a bridge and zooms in and crops out the bits that don't really suggest it and focuses on the bit where it all goes blurry, which is at the far distance of his angle of view and the limitation of the weather on the day. Nothing more.
I just want to shout out Walt from Iron Realm Media. I described where Soundly lived as like a swamp and a slum, because I've had a look around Pontchartrain, the areas that are around it. He always puts Baton Rouge in his videos, so I had a look around the area known as Baton Rouge, and I described it as a slum. But I referenced it at the time in reference to Pontchartrain rather than Baton Rouge, which is where I think he might live. And Walt started defending the area of Pontchartrain because Walt from Iron Realm Media must live somewhere nearby. So I had to do a little bit of grovelly stuff backwards, saying, well, actually, you know, I didn't really mean it like that, Walt. But apologies, Walt. But yeah, where I've been looking on Baton Rouge, where Soundly appears to live, it does look like it's shantytown. It looks like it was built in the 60s out of wooden huts and stuff like that. But check it out, Baton Rouge. It's an interesting area to look at on Google Maps. So let's plug the after show, Nathan. You've started recently doing something called the after show, where sometimes you'll linger in the background and record what's been going on and whatnot. And usually nothing really happens. All the little cockroaches on the ball earth side creep out of the rocks because they seem to be like allergic to the sunlight. And once it goes offline and it's not live anymore, it's like the cockroaches come out. And that's what happens. And Nathan started realizing that PMARS has been sharing it and whatnot. And basically, it's a case of, well, he may as well utilize this. It's still his show. He may as well present it as the after show, even if he's not really there. And most of the time, nothing really happens. They come on, they whinge about Nathan a little bit, and then we start talking about flat Earth topics. And eventually, they get the bum smacked eventually, and they don't take it, and then it ends up being a back and forth. But sometimes something really juicy happens. And yesterday, in the after show, Nathan, do you know what number it was yesterday?
609. Hey, Billy. Warren.
Oh, yeah.
Yo.
Yo.
So in 609 in the after show yesterday, we carried on talking with Paul, the self-proclaimed geodetic surveyor that's now retired and does something else. And, you know, I'll be honest, my gut reaction was this guy's not a geodetic surveyor because I just created the impression that he probably wasn't. Now, he might have been, but I didn't think he was. And Arwin obviously shared the same view because Arwin said pretty much straight away, he seems to be a plant. He seems to have been sent in him, and I totally agree. But something really interesting in the show happened yesterday in the after show. And I called it live on air. And what I'm gonna drop now and rejoin back on Skype. So I'm gonna give you a buzz, Nathan. Okay?
Yeah, no worries.
Oops. That's the wrong button. Yo.
There we go. That was
Right,
about
so-
as slick as we could ever do that.
Yeah, I was looking at the wrong screen. Getting a bit of feedback as well, it sounds.
It should dissipate in a moment.
Okay. So, share screens and sounds. All right, so basically, we all remember GeoStreamer having a hangout with me on the Molten 9 core, which you got battered about, by the way. And we all remember that when I went back to it as a result of something that Jimmy, some guy called Jimmy, obviously his real name, came in and started talking about Christine Huygens and a couple of other points that he made, where he read a line that was not there on when he was reading up his definition. He just added this line all by himself, and he got caught out literally red-handed. Well, that made me go back to the hangout in question with GeoStreamer, and I listened to it, and I heard that there was somebody in the background, and it transpires that there was no such hangout that was being played by me, and they never found it after weeks and weeks and weeks. And they still won't accept that Soundly was Soundly was helping GeoStreamer by way of technology in the background, but we all know that they did it. I'm not going to play the clip because we all remember it pretty well. For those that don't, you can check it on the back catalogue in Nathan's chat. But yesterday afternoon we had Paul in, and like I say, I didn't think that Paul was being a legit kind of person. I thought that Paul was being a little bit sneaky. And in the hangout, we've got a clip that I'm about to play. And basically, I heard what sounded just like the thing that I heard with GeoStreamer and Soundly, and I called it there and then immediately. And then basically we had the back and forth for a bit longer, and I said, look, I'm not really interested until I find out what the facts were. I said, it sounded to me like you were being fed, and we're going to go and look at it, and we're going to see whether or not that's true. So I'm now going to play for you the clip in question, and it's the blue bit in the middle that I've exaggerated again with the volume. I've amplified it. So you're going to hear him opening with a line, then there's a gap, and in the background it's the words "and down," I think it says, and then he repeats what was just said to him immediately afterwards. And basically, we all know that they do it, but they all deny it profusely, and they all pretend as though they are the font of all knowledge. Rhetoric, I'm talking about you. But basically, this is the moment. So listen to what he says, then listen for the gap that I've exaggerated in blue, and then listen to the rest of what he says. And I think the words that he's told are "and down."
I will assert that the following occurs. The top comes down and the bottom comes up.
So it's "and down" is what he says. And if you agree with me that this bit in blue is "and down," then he says the top comes down. That's what he's repeating, and the bottom comes up. You can hear that it's bled through again, just like it did with GeoStreamer. So we'll play it again.
I will assert that the following occurs. The top. The top comes down and the bottom comes up, and the top comes down and the bottom comes up. The top comes down and the bottom comes up.
So basically, whoever's voice that was, I mean, we can't identify the voice, but it's clearly somebody that was not in the hangout. It was clearly somebody on his end, and clearly it came through accidentally. Obviously, this guy called Paul denies it, but the point is that, again, they're being fed by stuff in the background. Now, we all know it's not the biggest crime in the world, but it just shows the underhand tactics that they don't like coming in on their own. They can't defend their own views, beliefs, perspectives, and they've got to come in with help in the background. And sure, we get stuff wrong frequently, and if we do, we've got to just smile and accept it. I did it with Folk Court. I got the wrong bloke. I didn't realise there was another bloke with the same name in the same city around about the same time that happened to be a philosopher as well. Sorry, I mean a physicist. I mean, what's the difference? A physicist or a philosopher? Both about the same, aren't they? But I deserve the bullets for it. But let's just see whether Paul, like Geo, will admit it. Because Geo didn't admit it. Paul won't admit it either. this bloke that we know called Paul. He's probably not his real name, but shout out to the bloke. You are a moron.
That came in.
Do you want to rejoin the hangout, Anthony?
Yeah. Can I just play it one last time whilst I go out?
Following occurs. Down. The top comes down and the bottom comes up.
Oh, and this is the bit where I called it.
And the level line stays constant.
Someone's feeding him in the background.
It's not adjusted. No.
So I called it in the hangout. If you do want to check it, go and check it out in the after show if we missed today. It's class.
Hangout's full. Don't go anywhere.
Oh, okay.
Hello, Apollo, and who was the other new guest that just joined? Was it Physics? Good to have you.
Thanks, Nathan.
So I guess if you do want to join then and the hangout's full, you're going to have to put a message in chat so that we can see it, aim it at somebody so that we get to see it.
Yeah, I'm happy to drop. Anybody wants to come in, just say okay.
Let us know in the chat if you do want to join. There we go. So, I don't know. I heard it.
It was the first time that this guy Paul came in, and he was called out by Arwin. He said, like, you're a freaking agent, because trying not to use the trigger words, trying not to presuppose. So he knows about how the show operates, and he's trying to just sneak his poison into the panel. And then he was called out a few minutes later, then the whisper came through.
Yeah, and let's be honest, I wouldn't agree with Arwin unless I had to, and I can't disagree with him at all. He's bang on the money. Whatever was going on, that wasn't a normal bloke. That wasn't a normal bloke that's had a job being some kind of geodetic surveyor. I don't believe him. I didn't believe him at the time. I don't believe him now, and Arwin was right to call it. Well done, pal.
Yeah, like he doesn't have access to the equipment, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he sounded a little bit too prepared. He came in, he had a whole intro and with his background and all that, and I understand why he would want to do that, but I don't know. There was, from the time he came in, it seemed a little suspect to me. I don't know.
Yeah, Donnie Johnson says in chat, it was not a one-on-one. Why the drama? There's a few reasons, to be honest. Basically, it shows that they've got to gang up, bully up on themselves. They can't present themselves their own arguments because they can get cornered pretty easily. It would seem that I would assert that he came in on the back of some kind of solidarity to either Miles or his brainwashing indoctrination known as, the Copernican model. And he felt obligated to come in, some kind of internal, innate kind of like, what's the word? Those Taliban type people where they've got this inner desire. I mean, why would you come in and argue somebody else's point for them? And then just to get wrecked, it was like the guy on the previous day. He came in to say that Miles had debunked my points. So we went through them one by one, and in the end, he got kicked for being a dick. But they're all seeming to have the same kind of MO. They come in firing guns and firing rockets, and then they realise that they're actually the pea shooters and they've got nothing, and then they get kicked out for being a dick. So shout out to the ballers that have got nothing.
Yeah, the first thing he did was put us in a orthographic view. I called it, and he was like, no, we'll come back to that because there's a reasonable... And then he just never did. So in the after show, I just lost my rag with him. I was just like, you've never come back to this. You haven't addressed it. You've just somehow managed to defuse me enough to let your example fly when you're telling us where parallel lines should be. And then saying, well, we do see it drop in the theodolite, but that's because the Earth's curving. Oh, right, so the whole time we're saying, no, stuff will drop towards the horizon, you're saying, no, it won't. And what he actually means is, no, it won't in an orthographic view when we're saying that's what the flat Earth should do. But when it drops in our theodolite, that's because the Earth's curved. You're like, wanker. Orthographic using arseholes, all of them. Miles Davis is the same. Just stick it in an orthographic view, because then your R works out nicely when you ignore perspective. All right, well, I'm sick of it.
Is everybody familiar with the phrase cannon fodder? Do we all know what cannon fodder is?
People you send in first to get shot.
Yeah, it's basically, there used to be a game on the computer called Cannon Fodder, and I'm looking at the definition. It says it's an informal derogatory term for combatants who are regarded or treated by government or military command as expendable in the face of enemy fire. Well, it's kind of like Miles was kind of arguing like his argument by proxy, sending in some bloke as cannon fodder so that he'd get murked. And that's basically what happened. He got murked. But what's interesting is that Miles is able to like benefit from this in the fact that he didn't actually argue these points himself. We can't prove that he was sent in, but nonetheless, Miles is like sat there smirking because he's basically seen our arguments, but without having to argue them himself. And it's quite interesting how the tactics of that one played out, because I wouldn't call it unreasonable to think that he could have been sent in by Miles, because Miles doesn't agree with Nathan complying with the law with reasonable chastisement of children, if of course he could prove that there was any impact with children anyway. But Miles has got this moral high ground now that smacking in his world is it's simply unacceptable. Well, guess what? I'm pro smacking. Get over it.
The hell have smacking views got to do with anything?
Well, that's his reason for not wanting to. I asked him, why won't you come on Nathan's show and present this? Because that's where the debate is. And his answer is because he doesn't agree with Nathan's rudeness, yet Miles is one of the most patronising, condescending prats I've ever met. But he also thinks that the smacking thing is a valid reason not to come in. And I'm like, well, even if it was the case that he did smack her, it's lawful. I said, you're allowed to chastise your child with reasonable chastisement in England. Get over it. But he takes this left-wing approach, right? He doesn't mind the fact that he lies through his teeth. He doesn't see a problem with that because it's all in the name of science and the good word for heliocentricity. But he has real problems with reasonable chastisement within the law of children, and that's assuming that it even happened. So it's funny where they draw the line, isn't it? Like when it becomes a moral thing, they become all moral high groundy. And Miles is one of those lefties. I can see why he doesn't want to come in. It's not for the reasons he gives.
The reason he doesn't want to come in is because he'd have exactly the same thing happen as that Paul guy had happen, which is to say he'd present it in an orthographic view, and I'd immediately rip him a new asshole on the spot, like I did with this guy. You know, that won't happen again with him saying, "Oh no, there's a reasonable reason. We'll come back to that." Oh, okay, seems reasonable. 40 minutes later, have we come back to it? No, he's just used it as this is how it should be on a flat Earth. Look, straight line. It drops because it's a globe. Oh, really? Oh, right. Well, we're asserting that it drops because of perspective, and we're not looking at a perspective view. That's the conversation over. That was the end of his argument. But he just had to obfuscate and argue that, no, this is what we expect. It's the most purest form of maths. It's very complicated. I learnt for a long time at college. Oh, really? Like I care. When you present us a orthographic view of the world that excludes perspective, and then tell us all about how magical your equipment is. I even asked him, what gives us this view? And he zooms in on a theodolite. Just a liar. No, this view is a representation that you have created in a computer to remove us from the observation, and then tell us what's what. And I'm just tired of it. We spotted this, how long ago was show 77, 78? It's like 9 months ago that we spotted this and figured this out during the Isle of Man argument. It's like, we're way past this, Miles. It's pathetic.
Yeah. He doesn't want to accept the possibility that that he might not actually have the strongest proof that he thinks he's got. I mean, I'm happy to admit that it's very aesthetically pleasing on the eye. It's a beautiful photograph from a photography point of view. I love the colours. I love the layout of it. It looks really good. But from a claim that it's it can only be possible on a ball, if that is his argument and that's his strongest proof in his opinion, well, it's interesting, but it actually supports flat, not ball. Oh, by the way, let me address Sly Sparkane whilst we're talking. Ranty and Meekin were on the other day, and they were chatting away about the mathematics that were involved in calculating the angular size. And Sly's done a video recently entitled Ranty Can't Geometry, I think it was. And I watched it from beginning to end to see what the point was. And basically, I'll paraphrase it for the benefit of Adam Meekin and Ranty, and I'm sure they'll correct me if I get this wrong. What Meekin was doing, or what they were doing, was showing that if you calculate the angular size just as a calculation, not as referencing the base that Sly's attacked because he said that it was done wrong, that what they did was calculate the angular size and then showed it in rank order so that you could perceive where the size should be and how the sizes should be. And by doing that, it then doesn't place the baseline as part of the calculation or the demonstration. The baseline simply being used as a reference point, but not as the anchor point. It wasn't subject to the baseline the way that Sly presented it. It was a calculation based on the size that you would expect it to look. And then when you compared it to the picture using the ruler, which wasn't based at the baseline, it was just on screen so you could see the size. It demonstrated perfectly that if it were a sphere, the curvature would put these mountains a lot higher up. And I think that Sly's missed that. So I don't know whether he's genuinely missed it or whether he's deliberately misrepresented it to his own subs to make people think that Ranty and Meekin had done something wrong. No, they hadn't. They hadn't done anything wrong. What they did was they calculated it and then showed the differences in the calculations, regardless of where the baseline should be. And basically, you have to kind of work it out yourself. So don't be pinning the calculations to a baseline that Ranty has used earlier on in the video. Understand that it was to do with prioritizing the ranking of the sizes that are important, and you could clearly see that. Yeah, you could argue over where the baseline might be, but you could clearly see that the sizes are inconsistent with it, and that's the point that was being made. It was not the point that they were anchoring these things to the baseline, and unfortunately, it doesn't change the position. Our position is maintained because we're not arguing where the baseline is. Yes, you might be. We're arguing that the overall size, wherever the baseline is completely wrong. So it reasserts the position, Sly. So you've missed the point, really. You've focused on a point that wasn't being made, and you've emphasized it as though it's a mistake. But actually, it doesn't change the original point. The original point is the angular sizes don't support the sphere Earth, which was the point that was being made.
Do you want to join the panel? There's a gap now.
Yeah.
Sorry. So just to round that out, yeah, while you're inside the begging the question fallacy, so what compared to what? Where the mountain should be compared to what? Well, they're saying they should or shouldn't be somewhere based on a model, based on a begging the question, proof of nothing, perspective hijacking, curve calculation. That's what they're basing what should or should not be seen. And it's utter nonsense. So again, this kind of crap gets dealt with very quickly here. This is why these people don't want to come here, because we will immediately point out, oh, what are you saying? The hill should be where? Because what, sorry? Because your model says it should be there. Oh, right. Why would we ever trust your model and what it says? We don't beg the question here. We don't assume that your model's automatically correct and where it says these hills should or should not be is correct and therefore the photo's wrong. It's just nonsense.
Just addressing Rumpus in chat, he says, Ranty and Meekin were clueless. They didn't understand that you needed to calculate the size above eye level. Riley, you are an utter moron. Miles's picture is impossible on a flat Earth. No, Rumpus, you don't understand what perspective actually is. I'll just say it again for you, Rumpus, and only you. So for everybody else, just bear with me while I just talk to Rumpus. The calculation was of the overall size. If you can't work out where that size is meant to sit on the ruler, Rumpus, that's your problem. But we showed that the sizes are completely wrong, and if it was curved, we would need to see far more of that mountain than what we actually did. And you can't get past that. It literally is that black and white. If you don't understand it, you need to go back to school, because everybody else gets it. That rank order scale and perspective thing, we understand that Miles's position is not possible on a sphere because the mountain should basically be behind the curve of the Earth. Not totally, but most of it. And that's not what's being shown. So if you can't understand the angular size reduction, Rumpus tough. Everybody else does.
Go away. Design a website that represents it in orthographic view and tell everybody how we're wrong. Go on. You're predictable as it gets. Go and represent it in an orthographic view, Rumpus, and tell us how we can look at the photo and work out what the angular sizes are, then go back to the begging the question, proof of nothing, perspective hijacking, curve calculation of your own that's exactly the same. Right, Rumpus?
Yeah, let's just correct him again there. The spherical model matches reality. Miles's pictures are impossible on a flat Earth. No, Rumpus, you don't understand perspective. So anybody that's seeing your comments right now is going to be misled by a moron. Perspective means things get smaller. But if we live on a ball, things get smaller and fall behind the curve. And that angular size is what proves it. You don't understand it, but you're pushing your narrative anyway, aren't you, Rumpus? Disgusting.
Yeah, whatever. The guy's an asshole. Obfuscator. He knows how to do these magic tricks. And thinks that by ad homing the hell out of us and telling us that we don't understand from the chat that he's going to have some small influence. No, Rumpus. Afraid not. You have no tricks here. All you can do is talk over us when you join. You have literally nothing. We know all of your tricks, all of your obfuscation tactics, all of your begging the question fallacies, all of your affirming the consequent, proof of nothing, examples of a globe Earth have been debunked. You've literally got nothing but a bit of obfuscation from the chat. You're like a fly, slightly irritating.
Rumpus. Rumpus is the heliocentric red herring personified.
See, you don't
He's
understand
a walking
perspective.
red herring. He always has that red shirt.
So he says things like, you don't understand perspective, and yet his calculation doesn't include perspective because it's not performing viewing functionality in Rumpus's own words. So he's gonna, it's like when they talk about refraction, you don't understand refraction. We don't need to. Terrestrial refraction 7.6R, isn't it? So it's got absolutely nothing to do with the actual refractive levels or indexes of anything. It's just 7.6R. That's terrestrial refraction. You just bend light around your so-called curved Earth. So you telling people that they don't understand refraction and then going into great detail about how refraction actually works. Real refraction, that does happen. Yeah, you'll talk about that till the cows come home. And then when somebody's beaten down enough, you'll then go and apply 7.6R, terrestrial refraction. That's what you do. In this instance, you'll talk about perspective all day long and how it works and how you can calculate what the size of something in a photograph is, only to move into an orthographic view and ignore it. We know your cheap trick. The magic has no luster anymore, Rumpus. If you think you're convincing people in the chat, then you're deluded. You're flogging a dead horse here.
The other thing he says is, I don't realise that you need to subtract the height of the hill above eye level. Well, how do you account for the squashing?
Let me just stop you. We don't need to do anything, Rumpus. Just got to stop you, Anthony. Sorry to interrupt. We don't need to do anything. What? So we can compare it to your model, Rumpus. There's no calculation needed. The fact that Miles has compared a photograph to a model and told us what it should or shouldn't do on a flat plane is relevant, totally irrelevant, meaningless. You telling me what it should do based on your model, telling us where they should be. It's stupid. You've got reification fallacy disorder. You just keep doing it.
Of course, the bigger problem is that even if we do accept that light bends the way that you tell us it does, even if we accept that, you've still got to show that it's bending around a curve. So even all your arguments are still subject to that R. You've got to show that it's bending around the curve. You can't do it.
Right. They're just screwed. All he's got is to buzz around the chat, trying to leave anybody that might have a little bit of doubt to think, oh yeah, they're wrong. I'll just buy that. That's the easiest route for my cognitive dissonance to settle down and say everything's cool because Rumpus says we're wrong. Well, Rumpus is a moron, and we've taken him to pieces on countless occasions. His contradictions get highlighted regularly. We take out plenty of little short clips of where Rumpus has completely contradicted himself, lied, misled. Rumpus.
Oh yeah. Let me remind people of what he tried to do mathematically with the definition of neutral buoyancy. Neutral buoyancy just states it's the object's density is equal to the density of the medium it's in. It doesn't talk about anything else. That's all it says. But then he added little g. And the minute I pointed that out, he started demanding that it was true. Well, it's not in the definition, is it? Misrepresented the mathematics. It doesn't involve little g, but he needs it to be there. So he has to put it in there because that's his sleight of hand. And we just call it lies. But he demands it's in. Liar.
Yeah, same with Cavendish. He'll present a complex mathematical hypothesis and then say science over and over again. It's pathetic. Doesn't matter how many times it gets pulled to pieces. He'll bring up his mathematical formula and say it's a complex hypothesis. Well, he'll dance around that actual term because he wants it to just be a hypothesis for his proof of nothing balls in a shed.
Riley, the definition that I use for neutral buoyancy is not a scientific definition for neutral buoyancy. I don't think you understand science anymore, Rumpus. I think you understand the maths. I don't think you understand the science, because science is not maths.
Scientific definition? What's he talking about?
Well, it's the definition for a layman. Oh,
science is the establishment of cause and effect in the natural world, Rumpus. You're trying to establish the cause of phenomena that you observe. So, a scientific definition? What are you talking about?
No, he obviously is suggesting that you have to be part of the priesthood to use the real scientific method.
That science. The bullshit science. The pseudoscience priest of heliocentricity. Oh, what they define it as, you mean, Rumpus? I couldn't give a crap.
Anyway. I think we've established that Rumpus is the utter moron. Doesn't understand what science is. Understands the maths. Doesn't understand what actual science is. He'll push the pseudoscience narrative all day.
He says science is more than determining cause and effect. Oh, really? So you do understand what science is, right? Yeah, it establishes cause and effect. That's what you're doing. You're observing natural phenomena and trying to figure out what causes it. That's what you're doing. That's what science is.
That's where it starts.
More means name tags with white coats can assert things, like define things and call it science. Nah. It means that you can mix up maths and science and claim that that proves things when you can only demonstrate a correlation, a likelihood. Nah, that's not science either. What an idiot.
The problem is science can be very extensive, but every piece of it has to be scientifically proven. That's how you can build a more complex hypothesis, basically.
Check it out. It says determining the size of an electron. That's not science, Rumpus. That's measuring something. That's maths. You complete bonehead. Oh, God, he cracks me up. He is good for a laugh, though. I'll give him that.
Still
that's measuring things. That's maths.
The problem is, as funny or good for a laugh as he may be, he presents things in a way that people believe is actually true. And that's deception. But people believe it. And that's the bigger problem. We can neutralize Rumpus with one bullet, but all of the people he's influenced over his lifetime, that's probably more than 10. They're all thinking that the Rumpus was right over something, and it's just...
I don't know. I think only really surface thinkers fall for him. Really, because anyone that actually pays attention knows that he is just a complete, shameless, politicized guy about what he does. That he knows no shame. And that he's a living red herring incarnate. So, yeah, no, only on the surface. If you really get to know this guy, if you pay more attention, you'll figure it out pretty quickly.
Well, you'll figure out that he wants maths to be science. The size of an electron is a physical entity, you utter moron. Yeah, that's why when measuring it, it's classed as maths, not science. Establishing a phenomena that may involve electrons, well, you could do that with science. If you wanted to establish the cause of the effect, that's what science does. Measuring the size of something, that's maths. Doesn't matter how complicated. You can call it, say, measuring the size of a proton or a quark. Does that make it science? No, you blithering moron. You're still measuring the size of something. That's just maths. Yeah? Just because it's got something sciencey in the title. Oh, I'm measuring quarks. This is science. No, you bonehead. No, your name tag and white coat don't make it science either. A giant hadron collider doesn't make it science either. No, sir. Science.
The only phenomena they honestly have to go on is a bunch of lines.
Oh,
I don't even know what that is.
Afternoon, gentlemen.
Good afternoon.
You're looking rough as chuff.
What do you reckon, Adam? So, thanks for the size of an electron is maths. Yeah, that's correct, Rumpus. Would you agree, Adam, that measuring the size of an electron is not science?
No, it's theoretical because it's the way it's calculated. You don't actually physically measure it as you would take a measurement. You make assumptions and do maths to calculate it, don't you? It's
I heard the word. I heard the word maths and
sense.
Calculate. I had maths and calculate. So it would be maths then.
Yeah.
Oh right. Thanks for that clarification. So yeah, as it stands, Rumpus doesn't agree and thinks that this is science. He's a moron.
Well, if you measure it, that doesn't give you any cause and effect relationship, does it?
No, that's what I said.
Yeah, how did you know that, Adam? I mean, we've been saying it for like 100 shows, 200 shows, and Rumpus hasn't managed to get it yet. But
when I went to university, we were taught what science was because it's fundamental in my profession.
Rumpus would have been as well as I think he's got a degree in physics. He would have been taught what science was, but for some reason he seems to forget it.
That's all it can be then, amnesia.
Adam, did you get the benefit of hearing what I was describing to Slice Arcane responding to his video about Ranty that can't geometry?
Yeah, I've just been looking at it and I spoke a little bit on it last night. I'm not sure. Like I said, if you take his correction, which is a red herring in itself. Now I did hear you point that out, but it does mean that my figures align even better, and it doesn't do anything for the point of what we were saying, which is to put those peaks onto a ball affects how they'd be laid out in the picture even further, and he seems to just be ignoring that point. I'm having a little look at the spreadsheet he's done. I'm just trying to work out. He's using arctan, but I don't think I necessarily agree with the way in which he's hard to see because he's got some hidden columns. So I've been pausing the video and just trying to look at the Excel spreadsheet functions that he's using, but they're not all visible. And there appears to be a number of, in columns A and B, there are numbers in there, but they're not visible. And they seem to be the ones that are determining the ratio of split. So for him to take that isosceles and form two right angles of different sizes. But I'm still kind of plodding through it a little bit, trying to work it out. But I can kind of see a problem here. I've just taken one for peak D, and he split the two angles so that at 97 kilometers, he's got 210 below eye level and 330 above, and that might work out if the picture was 100% in line, but it isn't.
And even he admitted that himself. He thought that Miles was about 5 meters lower than what he claimed.
So the maths that he's applying really does, to have any validity, has to be 100% level transit. A bit like when Miles was showing you with the Coke cans. To use that mathematics, it does require that perfect transit. And I don't think that's there in the picture. So I don't think you can apply it like that. And I also think there's a question about how he's splitting the triangle up at the different distances. But like I say, it's hard. I can't quite see the spreadsheets, but most fundamentally, it's kind of irrelevant because that was not the point at all that I was making. The point I was making is the different distribution of how the peaks would appear on a flat plane compared to when laid out on a ball, and just using that basic, as you said, Anthony, that basic formula to just exemplify it, because I don't think there's a need to do any more than that, because the way in which it skews the results when you lay it out on the ball and the effect the curvature has, that simple bit of analysis is enough to demonstrate that the peak order, rank ordering, would be very different on a ball. And say again, the bit of maths that I've seen Soundy do, all it seems to have done is realign the flat plane results to be in perfect agreement. It stops the disagreement in the bridge and Cairnock Hill. It actually makes it match 100%.
It's a bit of a because although you're on describing this, Miles pretends that he doesn't listen to the show, and he'll use that as the excuse not to address the points that you're making.
Yeah, well,
he really should address these points because they show that they're not the way he's telling people that they are. And then you got stupid people like the Rumpus in chat telling people that Miles's observation is impossible on a flat plane, and it's like you're misrepresenting what's going on there, Rumpus, and people seem to believe you. Well, that's stupid on them, but it's not acceptable. You've got to prove the claim, and we can't even establish with certainty where he is because he didn't take the GPS coordinates, and that's the one thing that he shouts and shouts and shouts at with me when I didn't do the Isle of Man stuff because the GPS coordinates weren't on it or whatever. So it might not have been him; it would have been other people. But my point remains that we can't establish that he actually took the pictures where he says he did. Yeah, he's got them on a tripod showing that what looks like he's doing it, but it doesn't mean he actually did it then. So it's
trouble mathematically, Anthony, with that, it goes back to the old basic curve calculator thing and the fact that you're on top of a ball. And for him to apply the level transit argument is absolutely fine. Okay, but what you have to remember with that is what that does is it calculates the angle down, because you're not getting a straight line perpendicular to you sat on top of the ball. You are having to slightly angle the camera down if you were on a ball. And it's that one angle that then massively impacts on all of the other subsequent peaks in the background, because it fixes the angle. You're not then tilting it down to give, as I've done in the maths, in a very generous way. You're not tilting it down for each peak to get them. You're creating that hump, and it's huge, and it has a massive impact on the observation on the others. But they're not. That's what I'm saying. That they're not doing that. They're not taking into account all the mass, because if you do, basically you may as well just take the straight curvature figure. If you've got a straight perpendicular leveled camera looking out, you are really should be just subtracting the curvature figure from the height, not this hidden, because you're not angling the camera down. So you're therefore looking straight out on the ball. So everything in curvature is drop and removed from the peak height.
Yeah, so for those that are listening now that are on Sly Sparkane's side, can you just let Sly know that the response is here? It's in the first 20 minutes of the show. Because he should listen to this and he should correct his position, because he's misrepresented what he claims that Ranty did and misrepresents why it's wrong, because it's not actually wrong.
Once again, Anthony, the ballers are trying to use that maths to qualify reality. And I think I was quite careful to say it was an exemplar to give it to just show that if you lay this out on a ball, it is impossible. And that is the point. We can't prove that this I think it's a great flat earth proof of the picture, but you can't prove it works on a flat earth. But what you can demonstrate with the picture and the maths is that it does not work on a ball. That's the one thing you can demonstrate with it with some certainty. I think that it does not work on a ball.
I think the bit that people forget is that they look to the people like Sly and Rumpus because they are degrees or whatever with maths or physics or whatever the backgrounds may be. But they don't realize that people in flat earth are also equally as qualified. And myself only, I went beyond what Rumpus's level of education is, yet he calls me the moron every second day. And it's like, well, who's the one? I might not be skilled in the art that you are in terms of the physics, but I do realize that mathematics is not proof of causation for anything. Never has been, never will be, but he still calls me a moron for it. Makes you wonder where his real world application of his skills comes from, because it's certainly not the real world.
And with that, I'm going to say first and foremost, a huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of the debating panel for making this debate possible. And of course, a massive thank you to all of the live audience for tuning in and hopefully sharing this debate. If you hated the show, then you know exactly what to do. But if you liked it, maybe consider sharing it with a friend or subscribing if you have not done so already. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!